Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Sidebar Speaker Series. This is one of those sessions where we've opened up the Sidebar Speaker Series to non-members as well. Sidebar is a comprehensive career growth platform. It started off as a peer group for senior execs, where we would, meet regularly, learn from each other, and now it's expanded into a lot more. The speaker series being one of the additions that's delivering value to our members. And then we realized there was a lot of interest in speaker series, so now we're opening it up to non-members. So if you're a member or a non-member, welcome. I'm Sue Belagodu. I'm a product exec who, like 70% of them, have tried to move to the AI field. About 2 years ago, I co-founded an AI startup, AI native startup, and very soon realized developing products using AI is going to get easier and easier, but taking them to market is absolutely a nightmare. So I shifted my focus to AI go to market, and now I help other founders do what I did and what I was able to do, which is scale from 0 to 2 mil in the past 2 years. But today, our focus is on Kristin. I am so excited for this session. Kristin, thank you so much for presenting to our community. Kristin is a Sidebar member, but she's also so much more than that. Kristin, I will pass this on to you because I think you're the best person to do this introduction. Take it away. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. And it's such a pleasure to be here today. As Sue mentioned, my name is Kristin Wegner Guilfoyle. I am a Sidebar member. I am just about to start my third year, and I just finished the Sidebar Circle, which was fantastic. So if anyone's not already part of that, I highly recommend it, and I'd be happy to chat more about that at the end of the session. Before we begin, I really wanted to dive into the question that we have here. So what is one AI-related thing you've learned in the past week? And I saw a few answers in here. Um, let's see. I learned more about refining my ChatGPT prompts every week. Would love to hear more about that. It's easier than I expected to create a personal agent. Gemini is a great brainstorming buddy. I've been developing a product idea with it. Continuous prompt optimization, different tools. Harsha says they've adapted LLM Council project to figure out which LLM platform is good and not good for different tasks. That's really helpful too. And learning how to use different models for competitive landscape prompts. These are so, so great. It's so nice to see all of the experts that are already here today. I'm going to dive into that in a little bit, but here's the agenda for this session. So we're going to go over AI momentum, some context, and why leadership matters now, the shift that AI leaders must make, different types of toolkits for culture, experimentation, and skills, and then putting it all to practice. I'm excited to share some tools and tips that I've learned along the way. So, a little bit about my professional background. I have led innovation, research, and development teams and workforce teams, both across research labs as well as tech companies. And I've also finished my PhD in research on innovation and how we embrace innovation. So I'm excited to use some of those tips and experiences today with everybody. So we're living through an unprecedented change. We're here at Sidebar because we're innovators. I love seeing all of these innovations and different things that you're leading, but we're also here because we like to connect and be able to share and lead this new frontier that we're all at. So next slide. I'm going to dive into the prompt a little bit more. So the thing that you put into chat, how did it make you feel and what were you able to do? A couple people put that they were surprised, that they got insights that they weren't expecting. What other types of things did it help? Was it efficiencies, make you feel better about something? Did it make you feel frustrated in any way? Okay, well, we'll continue to circle back on that. So let's start with grounding and some context. AI isn't just about new tools, it's fundamentally changing the tempo of work. The organizations that win won't be the ones that create the best model or the fastest to production. They'll be the organizations and the companies that can learn, adapt, and experiment faster than the world around them. So the work cycles that used to take months are taking days. Some of the chats that are coming through, everyone's saying, I did this last week. It helped me feel empowered, that I have so much to learn. Lots of good chatter coming in there. So the work cycles that used to take months take days, teams that are experimenting, but often we're in isolated pockets. And the leaders are expected to make high stakes decisions with incomplete information. And there's other challenges too. There's this AI noise problem. 95% of AI projects have not produced measurable returns. There was a report that came out from MIT Media Lab recently. We also hear that employees are paying out of pocket to get AI ready. People are paying the $20 subscription fees to multiple subscriptions that keep up. Companies want to support that, but at the same time, it's moving so fast. And by the time you vet a product, everybody's on to the new thing, or the subscriptions are adding up too. There was a recent Harvard Business Review article that came out in August this year about the perception of expertise. And so it said that people use AI privately, and at the same time, they judge people for using AI too. So there's this paradox of we want to shift towards AI culture, and at the same time, if you hear that your colleagues are using it and it's a non-vetted tool or it's a way that they're using it that might be a hack, that there's also judgment that we have about our coworkers too. And so, how do we manage all of this different noise around it? So, it creates cultural friction, mixed signals, and hesitation. But we're all here because we want to lead the way, right? So, the shift that leaders must make, we're shifting from directing to facilitating, from having all the answers ourselves to be able to create experiments and creating cultures of running experiments too. So, we have to navigate this in very uncertain times, make high impact decisions with incomplete information, and being able to curate learning among a team. This also changes how we manage information and how we manage direction. So, more of a distributed intelligence. Teams across different companies, as well as engaging with your customers, and more of a two-way, multiple ways of receiving information. So, in this session, I hope to give you a practical framework and tools for leading the AI-driven environment. You'll walk away with actionable methods to engage your coworkers, structure experiments, build confidence and capability, and reduce friction and create alignment. So I first want to start with this model, the diffusion of innovation model. And I always come back to it because it's decades old, but it's such a helpful framework for thinking about ways that we adopt innovation. So this model shares multiple different groups broken up across this curve, and it examines how ideas spread among groups of people and focuses on the conditions or increase or decrease of a new idea, innovation, or product. So this framework could be used to how you think about it for yourself, but also how you elevate people around you, or if you're thinking about your customers too. What's their willingness to adopt some of these different technologies related to AI? Each of these different buckets, and I'll go through them in a second, has different wants, needs, or desires. So this first one on the left, innovators, is 2.5 people of the whole population. These are the group that are continually innovating. It's a minor group of people. They're always trying to find new ideas, explore new technologies and products. These are the people that are influential and responsible for creating the new products used by everyone else. They like to be the first of the kind, the first to create things. Think of Sam Altman. In companies, this is typically the founder. Seems like a lot of people here today too fit within this category. So think about the wants and the needs of those in this innovators group. They want to be the first, they want to be the fastest, they want to break things, they want to fix things, they want to move to be the first to market. The second group in the red is typically where more the development teams would be, so early adopters. These are considered opinion leaders or influencers. They're open-minded to change, but also share positive testimonials of the feedback of the innovations. They're curious, proactive, and they see the potential in things. A lot of us probably fit within this bucket too. This group in the red are curious, proactive, they see the potential. So in this group, you might think of your favorite AI podcaster or influencer. In companies, it might be someone like leading the R&D team or software development team. But they might fit into this category. So when we think about what they might want or need, They want access to tools, they want to move fast, they want to adopt things that have either been created or be on the frontier end of it. They're thinking about their customers first and thinking about how we move this shift. If you're using AI multiple times a day to solve problems, you're ahead of the curve and probably fit within these two first categories. And if you're here at Sidebar listening to an AI talk, you're definitely in the early adopter category. The third one in blue is the early majority. So people that fall into this majority are also basically followers of early adoption. They want practical, proven results. They want to see the technology, but also know that it's going to have value. So in a company, this might be teams like solution engineers or the tech evangelists like enablement teams. This green part is also really important to highlight because this is the majority of people in companies as well as customers too. And so the green part, the late majority, they're sometimes skeptical. They might not be familiar or comfortable with change. They're quite often in this category only accept new products or innovations when they begin to feel pressure around them, or they start to feel this pressure that everyone else is moving to it. So now I have to. All the other companies are moving in this AI bubble and this AI curve, and I have to do the same thing too. They're cautious, but they prefer structure. In a company, this might be considered departments like marketing or legal or finance. I know a lot of times, especially us, we're in very innovative companies, but if we think about across the entire company, they might be embracing it slightly less or slightly slower than some of the other development teams. It might be the finance team. So think about things that they will want and need as they're starting to embrace these technologies. It's also helpful to think about your customers in this sense too. You'll have the early adopters, but then you'll also have to figure out how do you get the market share for the folks in the green. And the last category, all the way on the right, are the laggards. So they might be the most conservative of the bunch. They embrace new products or innovations only when there's no alternative to doing so. So think about people who refuse to go on the internet and then all of a sudden they have to because everything is on there, or they're trying to pay a bill and it's only on the internet. They're typically the slowest to adapt. They need stability. And in a company, this might be the last person on your team that wants to adopt the new SOP or the new technology that everyone else is embracing. In a department or a company, it might be the department that's the last to go digital, fully digital. So for me, this is a helpful model because we can think about all these different categories and also figure out how to create shifts. So why does this matter? The context, the roles, the people, and how organizations embrace change can move us from one paradigm to the next. And so we each, some of us here are leading companies, some of us are part of companies, but companies can take different paths. There's the reality on the left where companies don't want to embrace some of these changes. They're making things go slower or they're refusing to adapt. They're in the status quo and or on the opposite side, they're embracing too much, but not being able to do it in a complex way that actually moves it forward. And company on the right, B, is shaping the new technology and the new paradigm. So if you think about back in the example of Blockbuster versus Netflix, Netflix completely adapted new ways of using data, technology, shipping the DVD to people's houses, incorporating the internet and things like that. They did a full paradigm shift. And AI is making things go faster for us too. So there's ways that you can architect your company by developing new processes, getting rid of technical debt, being able to incorporate all of these different processes to be faster and to be better. So I'll pause now. I would love to hear a little bit more from you. I see some chatter in the chat, but what is your current AI state versus your ideal? And it might be for you as yourself, as a founder, your company, or you're thinking about your customers or leaders. Love a little pulse check of where are you and where would you like to be? Evan, hi. Evan says that he's actually asked customers to acknowledge their type and show them their curve. When they say they're pragmatist, we give them pragmatist recommendations. And we tell them not to pay attention to the visionary stuff. That is so helpful because it's also helpful to know you're going to have different types of messaging where they are on the curve too. Not everyone's going to want the founder curve. That's super helpful. Thanks. Okay, continue chatting, putting things in. Okay. My C-level leadership drastically overestimated the accuracy of AI-driven insights. Yes. If you are willing to come off camera, would love to hear more about that and how you communicated that back.
It just it's just later. I'm just
Yeah.
sorry. Can I speak now? I mean
Yeah, go ahead.
the main problem is that I'm the technical person. I'm the developer, and they go like, "Oh, we'll just throw those files to AI," and then comes out that AI goes and they put 11 spreadsheets into it, and they ask questions related to those spreadsheets, and 5 times it answers based on scraping and parsing all 11 of those files, sometimes just 7, sometimes just 9, and it's super random. And they're like, "Oh, why didn't told us?" Well, because you didn't ask. And again, like AI is basically like the most junior team member that would never tell you that they, going to put fingers into the power outlet unless you will explicitly ask, "Do you plan to put fingers into power outlet today?" And they're like, "Yes, actually I plan." And then like, "Oh, come on, like you didn't do this like 5 times before. Why you decided to put them today, right?" So that my problem is like they feel that like their feeling of AI is like magical, effortless results.
Yeah.
But in my
Yep.
reality, those results are random. Sometimes it feels like, wow, it actually nailed it down. Then you asking similar question based on the same data set, and it goes completely nuts. And you're like, okay, what happened? So that's sort of difficult because the official marketing by OpenAI, Claude, like Anthropic and all of those guys, they like showing magic on the stage. Then they come back and they're like, "Oh, now you show me the magic." And I'm like, "Okay, but it's not working like this. Okay, I don't know." And then I'm like,
Yeah. That's great. That's so helpful. And it definitely reminded me of me and my 5-year-old. And will you put the thing in the electric and then figuring out if it's magic too? That's a great example. We will get to the part around validating through asking questions. And that is a crucial skill set. And also, what I also heard in this is being able to identify the different perceptions. And so a leader having one perception versus the reality and figuring out how to align those realities together too. That was super helpful. Thank you.
Kristen, I think there was one question on
Yeah.
the diffusion model. Harsha had a really good question. I said we'll come back to it, but then we
Sure.
don't want to lose it. It says, where is the chasm slash canyon in the AI-driven world in the diffusion model?
Yeah. So a couple of things. Let's go back to this. I think the conflict for AI is the speed and the need to do it faster, but do it well too. And I think this is different than what we've had for other types of technologies from the Industrial Revolution to digital transformation. I think now it's just everything all the time. And so I think there's multiple ones. So I think of it as a spiral where you have to innovate collectively and holistically. And the schism is between doing that in a way that is not chaotic and not just doing it around let's try this and hackathons and things like that, but being able to actually orchestrate at a systems level and be able to do so that's reducing technical debt and doing it in a way that's efficiency and also making people feel good about their jobs and the skills that they're bringing too. Harsha, I see you in your hand. Did you have a follow-up to that?
Yeah, if it's okay, I'd like to add a
Sure.
perspective to it. There's been some talk, let's say by Ravi Mehta from Reforge, that there may not be a chasm at all, or the chasm can come and go quickly, and it's a changing nature. He talks about product market fit collapse, like The very nature of what we think of product market fit is going to change so much with the AI. We may suddenly have a fit, and suddenly it may go down with rate of pace of innovation and competitive things. I was very curious, what will AI really do to this thing? We thought of chasm as something, oh, it's so difficult to cross. We need some, acceleration, velocity. We need that push, and then we go over it, and then things are okay. But here, I think, like chasms may be very ephemeral. It may come and go. Fit may come and go.
Yeah.
And everything, you maybe have a great product today, and then somebody else will come and disrupt you. And what do you do? So anyway, I just thought I'll add this perspective. Thank you.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. That actually leads me directly to the next part. So let's move into that because I'll talk a little bit more about the skills and ways that we'll think about that. So now shifting into some of the different tools that I'd like to share, looking at skills, playbook, and then fast experimentation too. And that chasm really plays into it. So I like this model from the Business Higher Education Forum. They created this framework of AI-enabled professional skills in partnership with different leaders across technology as well as academia. They released this last year, and it's a wheel because of that continual ongoing process, but also the interconnection of all these different pieces. So we see things like AI literacy, data literacy, things that are very technology focused that we all know that we've had to adapt and learn about for our careers. But there's also new parts of this too, being able to continually learn, develop AI literacy, and being able to adapt and lead teams to adapt too. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but I wanted to reference it, and I'm going to focus on the next part, which is a deeper dive into two of the different spokes on the wheel. So this is a continuation. It breaks down the competencies across at the top of the top row. You can see skilled practitioner, strategic leader, and executive leader. So these are, if you were to think about how you would move in the progression, the skill sets on the column on the right are the executive leader. So it really covers a lot of the things that we just talked about, being able to adapt to understanding the product market fit and how it might be adapting. Not only doing that yourself, but this is the first time that we have to lead teams to do that on all these different levels. If we think about the spokes on the wheels, we have to continually do that for lots of different aspects of the business, lots of different aspects of the technology. So I'll dive into the purple and the pink ones here. So the pink, the purple. Purple, collaboration and communication in AI. Skill sets that fit in this, our ability to work across technical and non-technical teams, communicating AI impacts, again, like that product market fit that we just heard about, risks, like the conversation with the CEO or business outcomes, and then translating between AI speak and also driving it back to stakeholder needs and business needs. The row on the bottom, the pink, is adaptability and continuous learning. And this is where I think, to me, is really exciting because there's a really good opportunity for us to be able to lead this continuous learning process. Again, we're all here at the Sidebar because we like to continually learn. We like to share with other people. We like to have conversations about what we're driving for and these meta skills that we're developing. So AI is evolving quickly. That means lots of different roles, tools, workflows are continually shifting. And so it means that we need to have a growth mindset to make sure that we're effective in our roles, but also effective as business leaders and in our companies. But it's important to remember, again, going back to that wheel, that it's a whole holistic framework. It requires interdisciplinary fluency, ethical grounding, and creative problem solving and collaboration together. So this muscle to me is different than some of the different technical and communication collaboration skills when we think about things like managing up or being able to have persuasive communication, gaining stakeholder buy-in. I think the ability to drive continuous learning, both for yourself, for your customers, for your team and your companies, is a new muscle and a skill set that is really beginning to emerge as one of the leading skills that's needed for AI. So would love to hear more from you. What AI skills are your superpowers and where would you like to grow? It could be anything across either technology, AI literacy, managing change. What do you think your strengths are and where would you like to grow? I see Jamie would like to vibe code. That's great. I think vibe coding is one of the most interesting things, both in that it's allowing us to do so many things, and then for companies also to figure out how to navigate that. World-class facilitator, coach, and writer. Also curious how AI plays into that too. There's so many different options. Yep, vibe coding, assisted coding is less scary. Image generation, vibe coding, grow, understanding architecture, reg, models, predictive analytics. That's great. I think it's really helpful. I appreciate seeing the depth of both technical and also other types of skills. I would also encourage us to think about different ways that we continue to move the product market fit, the different ways with customers, some of those different soft skills too. So I'm actually going to dive into that. And I think these are three critical pillars to an AI leader. So the first pillar, lowering friction, making it easier to start. That includes removing barriers, figuring out how to make it easy for people so the teams feel psychologically safe experimenting, or your customers do. But it also requires providing templates, guardrails, and version 0 drafts. So some of these things around vibe coding, when do you know when to create vibe coding products? And also when do you know when to throw it away? When do you move on from that and actually start to integrate that into code base and things like that? It's important to clarify value and being able to understand how to communicate why AI, why now, why us. When people understand the why, then they'll really lean in. So I think lowering friction is one of the important values that leaders can bring to the table. Being able to create internal tools, publish standards of best practices, and document use cases. The second pillar is build capacity. So when we think about different ways that we have to upskill across the organization or across the company, whether it's a senior leader, a customer, being able to help them develop critical reasoning skills. I love the example someone shared around it's like a junior staff person. So being able to share critical reasoning, validation, asking better questions. So this could be as simple as dropping conversations into one-on-one upskilling conversations with people that you work with. For example, there was a junior woman I work with that talked about a time estimate for how long something would take her. And I pulled her aside and said, these are a couple different prompts that you could use that would make it go faster, as well as these are different ways to be able to validate it. Another example, I was at a conference about a month ago, and a woman from one of the big insurance companies in the country said that one of their senior leaders actually created a rubric for AI that he asked everybody to use before sending them documents. And so he said, if you're going to send me an email, if you're going to send me a document, I want you to go through this rubric. So it was a series of prompts that they would put into the model that then they would ensure that they were ensuring standards, making sure that it was written in the right way, the right tone. That way he didn't have to spend his time to be able to review and provide that type of feedback. It was something that people were able to do through that the human SOPs that they're able to develop. And the third pillar is normalize experimentation and scale. So what works? This pillar ensures that AI isn't just one-off, it's not just a training, but it normalizes experimentation and failures. Creating psychological safety, celebrate learning, creating an AI coach and sandbox. I think I heard a couple of people mention examples of doing that. But the big message is to be able to capture lessons learned and share more broadly. The way that this showed up for me about a year ago was one of the senior leaders I work with shared in a pitch meeting. We were preparing for a client pitch, and he shared some of the different prompts that they use for the actual pitch. And then also started talking about different customer personas that they use to help them practice their pitches before getting into client meetings. And it was great to hear how they were experimenting and bring that be part of the conversation. And it made me think back to that original slide a couple slides ago in terms of we sometimes judge people when they talk about that process. And so how do we shift that? We start normalizing it and bringing it in to that. So I'll pause here and would love to read some of these chats, but also if anyone has any, let's see. Yeah,
Kristen, I
so
think one theme I see is, do all of these apply to enterprises as well? Or does this change based on the size of the company? How would we do it differently across different organizations?
that's a great question. It would change, I think, based on every type of company. And so I think not only are we expected to know our technology and our domain, but also to know what will work across the company too. I think all of this scales, and I do see big companies that are doing this, but it also is a network approach. When you do it with your team, then you can do it with your broader organization and do it as a company, I think. And actually, that's a good segue to the next slide. Let me pitch over to or move over to that. I think the same way that we do agile sprints, I think we're going to be starting to do that more with AI sprints. And I would encourage everyone to continue to explore like a cadence of learning. So this is one example of how you might do that. So this is a 1 week sprint. I think this could work with any type of group of people. But when we also think about how do you do this in your company at any scale, we do this already with software development, right? You're developing code base, you're bringing this in, having it getting pushed. And so similarly, we can do this with experimentation of AI and continuous learning too. So that was a perfect segue. Thanks, Sue. So think about this 1 week pilot, or for your company, maybe it's a month pilot, or it's a 1 day pilot, or with your team, it's a 2 hour or a hackathon pilot. But think of a short time-bound experiment for your team or at the organizational level. And so this simple framework can move it from curiosity to action. And the goal isn't perfection, the goal is learning velocity. So the first part, people, making sure you understand how does the work actually get done? What types of things are we trying to achieve? Who needs support? Who has domains expertise? I think for AI, one of the interesting areas is the people that have domain expertise sometimes might feel like they are the ones that might be replaced, but they're actually the most critical to us figuring out how to do things better, right? So being able to ask them, what are some things that you want to do less of for your job and building that into standard operating procedures? Or what are things that we should be doing better as a company? That's one way to figure out how to do tech debt reduction, but also to make their jobs better too. So the second part, business case, business use case, really thinking through what are problems that we're trying to solve. What are the what ifs? What happens if we get it right? What happens if we get it wrong? What might we be missing? And then do. So this third part is pilot. Start with small scoped time-bound exercises. It could be one simple prompt. It could be one simple validation of a prompt. It could be something really big like orchestration of multiple agents and we want to do this huge thing. But figure out what it is and time-bound it. Identify potential blind spots and then create personas or stakeholder registries to figure out who are all the people that would be impacted by doing this too. And then embrace learning. I think one of the other things with this is we have a really good chance to develop rapid prototypes, create vibe coding products, but then scrap them and move on from that and embrace failure, embrace all the times that it's hallucinating, all the times that it's creating results that aren't accurate. And that's a good learning process too. I will pause here because I see the chat. And Sue, is there anything questions about this before I move on?
I think the question is about ROI, and I think this kind of explained that, right? A half sprints is what you're saying.
Yep. So ROI, that's a good question. I think it really depends on the business and the use cases, whether it's ROI for end products, percentage of efficiencies within the company of being able to do something faster or better, or being able to achieve a KPI for a client better or a revenue goal. I think we have to think about it holistically. And a lot of times, this fail fast, fail often is not quite the same paradigm that we're going to have to use for this AI approach because there's different holistic ways that we should be thinking about it. And I see some good responses too, to this ROI question. Yes, there's definitely fear of missing out too. So I will go on to the next slide. Another chat. What's one AI pilot you can do next week? Or if you have been doing them, what is one that either succeeded or failed?
I'm curious if most of us in the audience have piloted AI tools for personal productivity increase or at the company team level.
That was one of the things that was half surprisingly good value is that I don't know if you're familiar with the GitHub Copilot. So the GitHub Copilot is built into the GitHub, and do not come into like super technical things, but GitHub allows you to create free repository, but you're not actually required to store the code base in it. You can store the source code, but you can store markdown files. So what happened, I basically dropped all my nodes to the markdown and I sent to that repository. And now GitHub Copilot is my second brain because it costs nothing and you can go to that repository on a web interface, open on the top right corner icon GitHub Copilot, and it will retrieve all the links that you thought were valuable, will retrieve the call transcripts with customers and so on and so on. So essentially, that thing works way, way better than, for example, Notion AI that promised you to have your second brain searchable and nicely refined, and it's not. But just saying. So that was the personal discovery.
I love that. That's great. It's nice to hear the personal discovery and then also the product comparison and also that you're training it to be able to move you forward too. I see a couple personal pilots, create a super me avatar. That's great. So you have it on the web 24/7. That sounds amazing. Automating customer onboarding with AI agents, personal cooking assistant, commercial agent to track AI awareness for brands. These are great. I love this. I'll have to collect all of these. One of my personal ones is we are putting my son to bed with a Gemini story every night. So we ask him about his day, and then my husband puts it up into a little story. So then we can hear about it, because otherwise he won't tell us about his day. But then we can also have him reflect on things too. So many hearts. That's great. Personal, aiming to design a test website using WordPress, Canva. And a question, do you see, oops, I just lost it. Do you see more bang for the buck to learn, build an app and develop a sense of how to actually build with AI, or to focus on business problems knowing that AI will solve most of the tech issues?
I'll add one clarification. It's basically, where do you, like, time's limited, right? Where do you think we should spend most of our time learning the core of, the RAG, etc., a lot of technical stuff, or is that, what, that will be solved and then focus on, I guess, solving business problem or learning the business? I know they're both equally important, but the fear is some of the part that's brought up earlier, right? The engineering leadership is recognizing, hey, we can build quickly if we understand the business well enough. From a
Right.
product standpoint, then is it how the product function will go forward, right?
Yeah, that's great. I'll respond, and if anyone else wants to chime in on chat too. I think it depends on your role and your function, but also what the business is trying to achieve too. And honestly, I would put that into AI and ask, right, how to have a decision matrix of how to spend your time and figuring out time blocks of where to put the efforts. Because I think one of the challenging parts is we are expected to kind of do it all at this point, but doing it concentrated and focused too. Because I think both, but it also depends on, again, your role and what you're expected to do, and then also the business value. I think I've also heard from companies that are just trying to navigate everybody, trying to show their value with AI. And so I've heard of like a hyperscaler that like teams and teams of people are just creating new apps and apps and apps, and they have a repository of apps. And not only one, are they like not aware of some of the vulnerabilities that they have and releasing customer data on some of the apps and things like that. But two, they're also trying to like navigate all of this. Is there an ROI? And it takes a whole other team of people to look through all of this and to say, is this the best use of our time, or should you go talk to a customer instead of create apps about it too? So I think, again, it depends on your team, the org. But I think the more you could create ways and validation checks of either time boxing, validation around what's the best use of time, and then some type of rubric to determine if that's what you or your team should be focusing on too. Because we do have to balance this need to create and need to develop, but also really making sure that this is grounded in something that's driving business value too.
Kristin, just
Yeah.
a quick time check. We have about 16 minutes left.
Yeah.
I love the upcoming slides, and I think that'll a
Yep.
lot of takeaways there.
Great. Perfect. Thank you, Sue. Okay, so the next one is a tool that brings back the diffusion of innovation model. And I'll walk through this before showing an example, and then I'll open it up to have you weigh in also. But this is one tool. I combined the diffusion of innovation model as well as some of the skills from the AI skills framework. So this is an AI adoption pulse check. And if I were to do this with my team, then I would put this in terms of people that I think are across the different diffusion personas, innovator, early adopter, laggards, and then also identify what are some potential blockers that they have, either with technology, what just came up in terms of the example of product versus engineering, how to manage that, and then also opportunities. What's going to be the outcome? Is it percent efficiency increases or dollars? And then what are the leadership skills that you would bring to this to also work within the system? So this is a systems level perspective of ways that you could think about all these different levels of technical, social, organizational change. I'll show a couple examples, and well, just one slide that has examples, and then would love to hear from people how you might use this. But here are some different examples, again, from the team level and company level. So if I think about early adopters, so here's one in red at the team level. Joe, he's spending too much time developing agents, which was exactly the example that we just talked about. So someone like this might need additional guardrails on tools or workflows. So having them weigh in on, hey, don't spend 40 hours of your week developing agents. We really need you to continue talking to customers. Opportunities for this person, you might be able to share with them examples around how to protect customer data when they're developing all these different vibe coded products, or refocusing their time on providing value to customers and the bottom line. The leadership move that you might do with Joe, again, time box AI innovation sprints, but also find ways to have them be a teacher to others too. So I'll go down to the next example, the early majority. So this is at a company level. So let's say the legal department. A lot of times within AI, we hear challenges of legal stalls development because they learned about it too late, or they need more clarity and communication about what the tool is that you're using. Again, people are paying out of pocket because they want access to stuff, but then legal finds out that they're using it and then they want to adopt it by the enterprise, but they don't have time, or they want to put that on the shelf for 6 months as they decide, but people are still paying out of pocket to use it. So what are the opportunities that you as a leader could do? Again, more efficient operations, communicate with them or your manager or you or your department, or as a leader in your company, figuring out how do we have better governance around this? How do we have less corporate risk? And then on the right, engage them early and often. Share AI frameworks and governance documents proactively. I heard from one person that they never know for sure if what they're doing is okay until they get the ping from legal that, hey, this product that you guys just released, we can't actually release it because of XYZ. So being able to incorporate them early and often will help prevent blockers in the future. And then being able to gain buy-in insights and really develop enterprise level AI operational processes. I'll pause. You can read the other two. I see some chats here too, so I'll go through and read that. But if anyone wants to jump in, Sue, feel free to do so
I
too.
think Robin has a really interesting question. Do you distinguish between AI adoption versus AI readiness versus AI fluency in any of your team decision making?
That's a good question. So yes, I think when I go back to the model of the innovators, so adoption versus readiness. So one, you kind of have to have both, because I think as we're continuing to iterate, you might try something before you're really ready to adopt. And that's where we have to be ready to throw things away too, right? So sometimes you go out and experiment. From the research perspective, a lot of times what I do when I lead teams is we say, okay, 10% of our time or 10% of our efforts will go to experimentation. 90% of it will be developing more use cases or figuring out if this is the right thing or sussing it out too. A lot of times I'll develop rubrics and figure out, is this worth our time too? So I think there is a distinction between all of it. Fluency, if you go back, I could go back to there's a whole category of data literacy and AI literacy. And so I encourage you to look at those too. But these are just some of the different skills within that. So guiding AI enterprise strategy investments at the top right. So there's different levels and different ways to think about the different skills. And I'm not doing a deep dive on here, but I encourage you to look at that too. But I would say, yes, there's distinctions. Yes, none of those should be deal blockers. It's not a straight line. We have to kind of do all of those and determine which ones we want to adapt, adopt, or iterate with. That's a great question.
Thanks, Kristin. I think that was great.
Okay. I will put in the last question, but I'll also read any of the questions and happy to answer anything too. But just for the last 10 minutes, what AI superpowers or skills are you ready to flex in the next month?
And if you don't mind, when you guys are still putting that in, Kristin, would you be able to share the slide with the survey? Folks, I highly encourage you to leave us a comment in the survey. Take the survey. It'll take less than a minute, but it'll give Kristin and Sidebar and me more feedback on what kind of sessions you'd want to see. So please take a minute to scan this and respond to the question Kristin asked as well in chat so we can continue our conversation. But I really think this is important for us. So please take a minute to do that. Thanks, Kristin.
So I see the question from Harsha around AI innovation is hot and product innovation is booming. Should we consider an AI on-off switch for products and services we build? Yes. I think it takes shape in a lot of different ways, both sandboxes or vibe coding or developing something and then scrapping it, or at the product feature level too. I think sandboxes is going to be a big thing that we're going to have to figure out as well. Guardrails, AI risk management is also important and not well understood. Yes, that's agreed. I think a lot of these different areas and some of what I touched on is just skimming the surface. I think there's deep dives you could do for each of these. And I think a lot of this is we're figuring it out and leading it together also. I know we'll go back to the survey in a second, but here's my information. And I'll just leave you with this, that AI success is learning culture, fast experiments, leader mindset shifts. And I think I encourage you to go out and continue to be the leader that you are, share back your wins and successes with all of us so that we can continue to learn. Connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm working on stealth mode on a couple different things. If you want to learn more about this or give feedback, I'd be happy to share. But really appreciate everybody's time today. I think we still have a couple of minutes for questions.
Yeah. So we still have time for questions. So feel free to go off mute and ask your question if your question was not answered.
Kristin, this is Matthew. Well, first of all, thank you for all the insight you've been providing. So I have a kind of, I'm kind of like thinking of how to position myself as an AI consultant, and I see right now in the market there's a lot of executive programs starting up. Everybody seems Chicago Booth, Berkeley, everybody seems to be starting up AI specific programs for an AI officer or something like that, right? So what I wanted to understand, is this a kind of a new role that's kind of forming up? Is this something that organizations is something, a new job skill that's going to be required? Is it something worth investing? I wanted to get, some of your perspective on that.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think so. I think 5, 7 years ago, we saw that with chief data officers, and I think the role is evolving. I think the AI officer role touches on a lot of different things beyond just data literacy. So I think there's something in it. There's a lot of different courses, and we're seeing consultants like McKinsey has a lot of reports coming out right now. I recently read that I think it was Accenture hired 3,000 data AI governance experts just in the past year or two. So one, yes, I think it's continuing. Two, yes, there's going to be a bubble at some point. And three, we don't quite know where the chips are going to land with everything. But I think for each of what I think about is what's my unique value add? What am I going to bring to the clients I work with, to my company, and things like that. I don't think it's going away, but I think it's a different transformation of what we thought of for AI data or data officers, things like that. That's a great question.
Thank you.
Yeah, Harsha, feel free to go off mute and ask your question.
I have a hot take. Will AI make us dumber and lazier?
Yes.
And if so, what do we need to do?
Does the internet make you dumber and lazier? Yes. And somehow it's also makes us smarter and more creative too. So I think we're always going to have to hold this paradox of what makes us better, but also what makes us worse. I think there's going to be a unique role of navigating all of that. And I didn't touch on that a whole lot within governance or productivity but I think, yes, we're going to have to hold that paradox.
Yeah, but I do think at some point of time, us humans will forget how to do what we did. And if we rely too much on automation, and I'm personally guilty of that. Like, I used to be good in college for summarizing and, writing, pressy essays and stuff. And now I'm just doing it to ChatGPT because it feels easier and it does a better job than me. But I am getting dumber in certain ways or lazier. But our generation is at an inflection point where we still know what we did. We still have memories. But the upcoming generation may not even know that, right? It's everything this GPT that. So I'm just very curious about the psychological impact. Yeah, for both people and companies. Companies may, yeah.
Yeah, I think jobs are going to shift and change, and that's one of the areas that I do work in a lot in terms of what are the different skills that we will need. I have friends that teach college classes, and they're making people write the essays on paper in their 2-hour classes. And at the same time, as a parent, I want the schools to embrace AI to some way so that they learn how to navigate that. We're at a really unique spot in this country right now, too, of we're trying to bring back manufacturing, we're trying to bring back more skilled labor. So what do we do with calculators? We're not doing arithmetic in our heads anymore too. So things continually evolve. I think there's an ongoing cycle that we'll go through, and we just have to continue to navigate it. And there's no one way. I think we're just going to always have this evolution.
Yeah, just a side note on opening up an additional time in the schedule. I would say I would say in terms of clients and me being as a software development consulting one-man show company of sorts is actually brings more burden in the terms that clients are continuously have that free consulting company talks to them 24/7. So if previously you did have like a sprint planning weekly, or you just catch up to discuss new features and stuff weekly, now they have the ChatGPT thing talking to them continuously. So they bounce a tremendous amount of ideas off of it. And it's extremely supportive. Like it asks, like the client asks ChatGPT, like, is this possible? And ChatGPT is like, yeah, this is possible. And then like, and if we do this and that, yeah, of course, but under certain conditions. And ultimately, the clients actually demanding more time as well because they bring on a Zoom call a ton more material because they did continuously have an access to this. I don't want to call it McKinsey consulting level of consultant, but like they really talk to that thing a lot
Yeah.
and it
Yeah.
gives them a lot as well. So it's way much more material to process. So it's way much more material to process.
Yeah,
Sorry,
and
David, what
definitely
time?
as a consultant in your role, there's going to be an evolution about what do you do with that, right? I think a lot of times as the AI leader, we're also going to be sifting through a lot more garbage. How do you work with either clients or people you work with to say, hey, let's go through again that validation, like the senior leader at the insurance company of before you get this to me, like run this through these three things to make sure that it's not hallucinated, that it's not 20 pages of AI garble. Like I think we have to come up with different validation processes, but also have realistic conversations about what is this. But also there's opportunities because hopefully they're coming to you with more of the things that they need help with because they're accessing these higher level thinking too.
Yep. Thank you guys. This was fantastic, Kristin. Thank you so much for sharing your insights. There was so much. I'm sure people are going to take it away and sit with it and maybe come back with more questions. We will follow up this with an email with some resources for you all. But thank you for being here today and stay in touch. I think we have dropped our links in the chat. And thank you for an engaging conversation. Kristin, thank you again.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.